All right, guys, this is the full prep episode for NFL Fantasy Football Week 5. Everything you need from latest news to all the optimal starts at each position for this week. So this is a mega episode, guys. Excited to dive in. We're going to go position to position, starting off with the latest news and notes. So, guys, if you are new to the channel, make sure you guys do smash it, tap it, slap it. And also, this is very important, drop a question below. I'll try to get to as many as I can. Guys, when I first started my brand, I want to interact with you guys. I continue that, and I want to continue to help you guys as much as I can. So drop a question below. I'll try to get to as many as I can. But very importantly, hit the thumbs up, guys. Really helps the algorithm here. Hit that thumbs up and hit subscribe and turn on that bell. I know a lot of people have not subscribed. This is the only channel giving you the truth. Okay, guys? A lot of BS out there. You want to stay honed in. You want to stay focused. This is the channel to do it. So hit the thumbs up, all right? I'm excited to dive into this, guys. Let's start off with the latest news and notes here with my friend, Breaking Brad. Breaking Brad, where are you?
We now have breaking news.
Guys, listen, I want to get you guys fully prepared for week 5. I am going to be doing another show. This is recorded on Wednesday. I'm going to be doing another show probably on Friday, Saturday with kind of like the last minute news notes because there's a lot of pending news here, but a lot of stuff is going to change, right? There's a couple things pending, which you're going to see, but okay, well, I was waiting for that news, waiting for that. So I'll try to keep you up to date. We'll do another show. So that's why it's important you turn on the bell. Okay, so let's dive into some latest news and notes here. Starting off, Devin Singletary did not practice today. He's dealing with a groin. Devin Singletary, I would say. Sucks. Malik Neighbors is in, with his concussion, so it's still early at the time of this recording whether Malik will play. I'm hoping he does, and I hope the Giants hope he does. But with these concussion protocol rules, they're very tight with these rules, so they got to meet a certain time period where they got to be sidelined, depending on how the severity of the concussion, yada, yada, yada. It is what it is. I mean, what can you do here? So Malik Neighbors, guys, if you have him in a league, I hope he plays. I need him this week. Got a bunch of players on bye, okay? Oh, by the way, the team's on bye week, okay? Detroit, Los Angeles Chargers, Philly, Tennessee on bye. So obviously Gibbs, Montgomery owners, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Ladd McConkey, guys like that. We got, Saquon Barkley. I've got some stock in him. A lot of guys going to be on bye. So again, Tennessee, Philly, Chargers, Detroit are the teams on bye week. So adjust accordingly. Now, one thing you can possibly miss, you got to be careful. I'm in like 7 leagues, right? And you got to make sure you supplement that kicker. Don't miss out on the kicker. Make sure you guys grab a kicker. There's a bunch of guys on bye week as well, kickers to these teams. Make sure you guys get that in, okay? When you're looking at starts and sits for week 5, make sure you're covered, okay? So we're talking about Malik Neighbors, more to come on that. Jonathan Taylor, his ankle was bothering him. If he's out, look for, I think it's Trey Sermon to step up. So Jonathan Taylor's ankle did not practice today. But again, if he's out, Trey Sermon is in. That team looks like a disaster for fantasy at the time of this recording, or at this year so far. Knee with Nick Chubb. He was designated to return off IR. I've got no Nick Chubb stock. I really don't trust the guy. After that injury coming back, it's a disaster. I have no stock in him. Devontae Adams expected to have some trade interest, possibly from the Chiefs. Chiefs looking to fill that void now. We've got Rashee Rice is hurt, probably going to be out for a very long time. And then we've got, Xavier Worthy. That's all they got, right? He's kind of more of a speedster, deep threat guy. They need somebody. Hollywood Brown was sidelined. Kelsey's not playing his best. So they're going to need to supplement that. So Adams kind of in talks with trade. I know a lot of people are saying, Tyreek Hill going back. I don't know about that, but Tyreek Hill is doing absolutely terrible. Like I said, I did a video on it saying Tyreek is done. And if you guys are Tyreek owners, at this point, I don't trust him. He can't be trusted. 3 games, under 8 points in all those games. I think week 3 had 8.2 points PPR, under 9 points in all those 3 games, 87 receiving yards and 0 touchdowns in those games. So Tyreek Hill owners, man, I don't know. He's done, if you ask me. And Tyler Huntley's expected to start, which is my next piece of news here, in week 5 against the Patriots. It's rough, man. It's rough. So everybody hurting from fantasy point of view. Bijan hamstring was limited. I guess that's why he was limited in the game. That's why we saw more Algier. So that's hopefully not going to linger. And again, hopefully we'll know a little bit more as we get closer to the week, okay? What else is there here? Anything else worth mentioning? I think that's pretty much it, really. So Adams, Taylor, Neighbors, Singletary, Bijan, the situation going on in Miami, a disaster, okay? Something to monitor. Also, I want to make a note here that Jameson Williams has really been stepping up. If you're a Laporta guy, Williams has absolutely stepped up on this team, and he's become a big target for Goff. I think he was 18 for 18 in the last game. looked amazing. Did Goff, and, Jameson Williams is being a beneficiary of that. They're kind of moving targets that way. And this is why I really loved Sam Laporta last year as a 10th round pick instead of Laporta as a 2nd round pick this year. And, I kept saying that in my videos. Like, I like Laporta. I like the talent. He's just, the Conchips are on him right now. That's why you got to look for the next guy, right? The next up and comer. You can't just be copying and pasting. Example, Christian McCaffrey, the only person to tell you to avoid this guy. And everybody had him in the magazines, the rankings, podcasts. Everybody's rankings had CMC at 1. He was outside of my top 10. I'm like, just don't draft CMC. I'm not even going to put him in my rankings. Okay. So you got to be on top of the news. All right. So let's go to, I'm going to pull up a vision here. I'm going to pull up the banner here and pull up a vision of all the optimal plays at each position, starting with the quarterback position. I want to make sure you guys are fully set. Week 5 is such a pivotal and crucial, absolute crucial week for a lot of people. It's a must-win situation. Just filtering here by quarterback here. So let's take a look at the guys that have the optimal matchups at each position, starting with quarterbacks. The first one you see here is Anthony Richardson, who's banged up. I think he should still play here. I don't think it's going to be the Flacco show. But Anthony Richardson's absolutely sucked. As you can see the points here, 5 points, 7 points, and 3 points the past 3 weeks. Absolutely terrible. Now, this is a guy, again, I told you to avoid. I said, do not draft a guy who's completely unproven. Like, we just don't know what to expect from Richardson, and he's been absolutely busting. Absolutely busting. So Anthony Richardson sucks. Great matchup, but hopefully you have a better option than Anthony Richardson. But if it's any week that Anthony Richardson has to do something, it's this week because he's playing Jacksonville, and he should be able to torch this defense in the secondary. I don't know what else to tell you. So Richardson, great matchup. Deshaun Watson, great matchup here versus Washington. Trevor Lawrence, okay, let's talk about him. He's not winning, okay? I don't think they've won a game. So 15 points last week. I think this is the week that they not only have to win, they are playing Indy here. Not only do they have to win, but Trevor Lawrence has to start stepping it up. Like, I love Brian Thomas Jr. this week. I've got him starting in all my leagues. And, this is the week where Trevor Lawrence has got to step up, man. I don't know what else to tell you. So if you are looking to stream a quarterback, or, if you have Trevor Lawrence on your bench, this is the week you got to start him, okay? Make or break, literally. Like, this is the end of his career. Like, they paid this guy so much, he's done nothing. Brock Purdy, great matchup versus Arizona. Baker Mayfield, great matchup versus Atlanta, just noting that. Jordan Love, great matchup versus the Rams. We got Caleb Williams against Carolina. I'm not really a big Caleb Williams fan. All his receivers have been suffering with lack of performance. Kirk Cousins, actually, bad week last week, terrible week, 9 points, playing Tampa Bay this week in a favorable matchup. Look for him to step up. And man, his receivers just not getting it done. Kyle Pitts just sucks. He was like one of the highly touted tight ends coming out of the 2021 draft. Has done nothing. He's absolute garbage, okay? So we're looking at starts and sits, though. If you need a backup or need a solution, cover a bye week, Kirk Cousins is favorable matchup. And Josh Allen coming off a terrible week, 8 points last week, as you can see here, I've highlighted. He's playing Houston this week. Good matchup. He's got to do something, man. I got him in my leagues. I'm starting him. I'm firing him up, looking for a bounce back out of him. As the color gets yellow here, the matchups are mid-range, right? So Justin Fields, Lamar Jackson, still favorable on the favorable side, and Derek Carr, favorable matchups versus position, and Joe Burrow, okay? Quick glance at the rough matchups versus position here. Again, this is based on the algorithm on the season here. Andy Dalton versus Chicago, Sam Darnold. So Andy Dalton and Sam Darnold, two guys that, years to wow us, we're not wowed, are actually going to be tested this week. How are they going to do against defenses that have been, holding quarterbacks back? So Sam Darnold coming off big games, keeps winning. Andy Dalton doing well as well. 17 points last week, 23 for Darnold. Again, Sam Darnold playing the Jets, Andy Dalton versus Chicago. They're going to be tested. Jacoby Brissett, I wouldn't start him anyway. Tough matchup. Pat Mahomes versus the Saints, tougher matchup. Prescott, Jaden Daniels, who's been solid, versus Cleveland. 7th hardest matchup versus position. But if you got Daniels, you don't have a better option. You got to start him. Minshew, Kyler Murray, and CJ Stroud to wrap up, the top 10 hardest matchups versus position here. Daniel Jones and Aaron Rodgers, also relatively tough matchups. So take a glance here, screenshot, so you have an idea to make better executive decisions when you're looking at starts and sits, okay? So that is the quarterbacks. Let's move over here to the running backs, okay? Let's talk running backs here, optimal matchups and tough matchups. And again, I do want to make a note here. When you are looking at starts and sits, you want to start your most consistent players, okay? This is very, very important. When you want to start when you look at your starting sits, you want to start your more consistent player. What am I looking at? I'm looking at targets. I'm looking at situations. Example, Trevor Lawrence, desperate to win. Great matchup. You got to start Brian Thomas Jr. Is their backs against the wall. They got to win. They got to perform, and the matchup's favorable. So you got to look at scenarios when you're looking at starts and sits and you're trying to make these executive decisions. Look at the scenarios, look at matchups, look at target distribution, look at volume. Encompass all that and compare it to other players on your roster. And who's available on waiver? Maybe there's somebody on waiver that's just been outperforming some of the guys on your team. You got to make those decisions. Okay, guys? Okay, let's keep going to this. Let's go to running backs here. All right. So Joe Mixon, great matchup. I heard he might play. If not, Cam Akers, he's been mediocre at best. I don't know what to tell you. It's been a bit of a mess here at running back for the Houston Texans, but they have a favorable matchup versus Buffalo. DeAndre Swift, coming off the game of his life, is playing Carolina this week. Favorable matchup, not bad. Rashad Johnson could be a favorable matchup here again versus Carolina. If he gets the volume as well. Again, Swift seems to be kind of the guy they're going to. But again, for DFS, 4,900, not bad if you're looking on DraftKings, okay? Najee Harris just absolutely sucks. I don't know what to tell you. He sucks, but he's got a great matchup versus Dallas. Ramondre Stevenson, 9 points, 1 point the week before. Been absolutely terrible. I don't know what to say, man. You're talking about a guy who's got no committee. Antonio Gibson sucks. And Gibson's actually outperformed in the past 2 weeks, 7 points to 11 compared to 1 to 9 for Stevenson. Stevenson's just not doing it. I don't know what to say. I'm really a loss for words. Again, so you could blame it to the offense. You could blame a lot of things. But Stevenson, I mean, he came out this season saying, I got to get it done. I'm going to be a workhorse. And it's just not working. Terrible offense. And he's got a good matchup, though, this week versus Miami. Just note that. Jordan Mason, I got him in my main league here. Crushing it. 27 points last week versus Arizona. Love it. And we know Christian McCaffrey's going to be out for a very long time, as I predicted. I'm the one that called the injury, and it's happening. Josh Jacobs, good matchup here versus the Rams. Other guys, Taylor, banged up. Be careful. He should start. Like I said, we talked about it. Trey Sermon, if not, would be a decent start this week versus Jacksonville. The matchup is favorable. Javonte Williams, great matchup versus Vegas. He hasn't been the greatest. Chuba Hubbard versus Chicago. Their rush defense isn't as great as their pass defense. 25 points last week. Chuba should have a safe week. Jerome Ford here, Cleveland versus Washington, could be a good matchup. Derrick Henry coming off a monster, 199, guys. 199 rushing yards last week. Favorable matchup against Cincy, and you got Bijan if he plays versus Tampa Bay. Relatively easy matchup, okay? Just be aware his hamstring is going to bother him. I'm wondering how much they're going to limit him, and that could be an issue. But it's so thin and trim at running back that, you kind of have to start Bijan. There's probably not going to be a better option, okay? Just monitor that, and I'm going to do another show, so turn on the bell. All right, Rico Dowdle, again, they all suck here, but 13 points last week versus Pittsburgh, good matchup. Again, you can screenshot this, take a look. Breece Hall, he hasn't been good. Wasn't good last week. Anyway, 4 points. I think the Jets were a mess last week. Third hardest matchup versus position. Sorry, I missed this one. Alvin Kamara versus KC. Tough matchup versus position, coming off some big weeks here. 25 points last week. Kamara versus KC. Breece Hall, all tough matchups. Other guys here, Chase Brown coming off 1 or 2 touchdown game last week. Him and Moss, decent games. Tougher matchup this week. They got it tough against Baltimore. Aaron Jones versus the Jets, tougher matchup. Brian Robinson Jr., 7th hardest matchup versus position, but you got to start him. Eckler's banged up. I think they're going to, feed Robinson. It's tough to start anyone else, considering how well he did last week. But it is a tough matchup. Be aware of that. Rashad White's been sucking. Bucky Irving, both have tough matchups. Bucky Irving's been absolutely terrible, averaging, 2.8 yards per carry, something stupid like that. Tough matchup versus position. James Cook, 10th hardest matchup versus position as well. And Zamir White is literally droppable at this point. And again, I take full ownership on this. Zamir White, absolutely droppable. Now, a lot of people come at me and say, well, Joe, you're wrong about, guys like Zamir White, Keon Coleman. Listen, I'm not going to get them all. And I hold myself accountable. And one guy that, has been my Achilles heel has been Zamir White. I just don't understand it. Everything was perfect for this guy. The offense, not the greatest, but a situation was perfect where he was doing so well at the end of last year. Volume was there. No committee. Madison, who got 0 touchdowns being a starter last year and averaged 3.5 yards per carry, came in. There was no competition. Zamir White just really actually sucks. It's completely out of my control, guys. And it is what it is. He just did bad, and I take full ownership on that, okay? So it happens. But there's so many other players from other other analysts or just from consensus that just have not been performing. I can sit here all day and list them. Guys like Tyreek Hill, for example, or Christian McCaffrey busting, or Anthony Richardson, right? Or Keenan Allen, all guys, or T. Higgins, and on and on and on and on and on. Yet people rip on me for 1 or 2 or maybe 3 bad picks. And Keon Coleman was a 9th round pick, and he's still outperforming Tyreek Hill, who was a 1st round pick. So, and you can say, well, it's injury, he doesn't have a quarterback. I don't care. It's at the end of the day, I can make an excuse for Keon, right? I can say, well, it's funny how they say, well, he's not getting volume. Okay, if Tyreek's not getting volume, that's why he's not performing. Well, Keon's not getting volume. If you feed a guy, he's going to do well. Now, he dropped the ball, Keon did, but he made it up, caught a bunch after that and made up for it, right? Like, you just got to keep feeding him. He's going to get into the rhythm and he's going to start performing. So it is what it is. It ain't what it ain't. Anyway, all we could do is do our best. Okay. So let's go to wide receiver here. And we're going to go through all of the optimal plays at wide receiver here, and then all the tough matchups at wide receiver. But before I do, guys, you really need to go down, put down your first deposit and get into the action at mybookie.ag. This is the site I use. This is the site I trust, guys. Get on the action. Check this out. Once you put down a deposit, they will match up to 100%. So if you put 100 in, they're going to give you 100. So it's like playing with free house money, right? So get in right now, mybookie.ag. The code you want to use, guys, is FFC. Don't just go create an account, sign up. Go put it down a deposit and get in on the action. If you guys want my picks, you can get them at the Counselor's Edge. I've linked it below, okay? Get my picks, guys. I've been perfect the past 2 weeks on the prime time games. I nailed the last 2 on the Monday night, and I nailed the Thursday nighter, okay, guys? So mybookie.ag, the code you want to use is FFC. Go create an account right now and get in on the action, okay? It's going to just enhance your game watching experience. That's what I do. That's the site I use, the site I trust. Go create an account, put down a deposit, and take advantage. Guys, go take advantage of the match deposit, up to $1,000, 100% match deposit. Put 100 in, they'll match it. Put 200 in, they'll match it, right? Up to $1,000. Go create an account. mybookie.ag. Code you want to use is FFC. All right, let's go to these wide receivers here. Let's go. Let's rip through it. And again, you can kind of see the visual here. And if you're in the car, I'm going to rhyme it off to you right here. Okay, so let's go through it. Guys that have good matchups. Let's rip through it. Amari Cooper, Washington versus Washington, favorable matchup. Okay, we got Michael Pittman, who's been sucking. I don't know what to say. Absolute garbage. I mean, he had a 20-point week last week. Josh Downs had a good week. Alec Pierce, who came off hot the first 2 weeks, has kind of cooled off here, 2 points last week. But Pittman just overall on the year has not been good. Again, a big part of that is Anthony Richardson, right? It's just a big part of it. So good matchups, though. Garrett Wilson, I read some reports saying he's just not happy with the way things are going with this offense. And I get it. I totally get it. But at the end of the day, man, you got to step up. You gotta start doing something here. 8 points is unacceptable for a late 1st round pick in fantasy. So, but he's got a good matchup versus Minnesota. The wide receivers for Green Bay. Now, some people keep asking me, who is the wide receiver 1 here? I still think Dobbs is the guy. He had, 8 points last week. Wicks had the touchdowns, and Reed had 30 points. Now, looking at this, it's like, no. But if you look at last year in the playoffs, Dobbs was the guy. If you look at, preseason, Dobbs was the guy. He was the guy coming out of camp. Jordan Love is just getting back into it. But it feels like it's like wide receiver guessing games every single week. This week, we'll have the full answer here. If you got Dobbs, it could roll to him this week. Or we could solidify it. We're going to see Wicks is the touchdown guy. We're going to have full clarity on that this week, but they have a favorable matchup versus the Rams, okay? We got Tutu Atwell. Los Angeles Rams versus Green Bay. 12 points last week. DeMarcus Robinson, all viable starts, but it's a bit of a crapshoot there. Someone's got to step up. And, maybe Tutu. It sucks. Keon Coleman, favorable matchup versus Houston. I still believe he's the one there. He's the alpha on this team. Shakir had 10 points. Keon had 8 last week. And he's going to get more play time. He's just going to get more volume. Allen is just starting to trust him more. They got to start throwing the ball if they want to win, okay? Jamar Chase, great matchup this week. So we've got, Cincy versus Baltimore. Brian Thomas Jr., we talked about him. Versus Indy, great matchup here versus position. DJ Moore, who's absolutely been mediocre at best, versus Carolina, good matchup this week. And Tyreek Hill, he does have a favorable matchup, but he is playing New England, and Huntley is starting, so it's not really going to help his case. And McLaurin, a decent matchup here versus Cleveland. So those are the good matchups. Guys that have it in tough, Nico Collins, who's been red hot, and I take full ownership on this. I'm surprised Nico's the guy, but with Dell being injured, it just seems like they're just traveling to Nico either way. It doesn't matter. Just Nico's been the guy. It is what it is. and 36 points last week. Crushed to get. He's the main guy, okay? But they do have a tough matchup versus Buffalo. Be aware. We'll see if he steps up. Devontae Adams banged up, or just Vegas receivers here. I think Trey Tucker, he's been solid. 15 points, 23 the week before. He's been consistent. You could probably pick him off waiver wire week 5, but tough matchup versus the position this week. We got Drake London at 12 points last week. Fourth hardest matchup versus position versus Tampa Bay. Jalen Polk and the New England. I mean, we're gonna get to defense, but these are defenses you want to consider start. New England versus Miami, or Miami versus New England. Great matchups because these offenses just not doing anything. But Polk, tough matchup, and you can see other guys that have tough matchup. Xavier Legette coming off a breakout week. 7th hardest matchup versus Chicago. We'll see what Dalton and Legette stir up this week. Him and Deontay looking good as long as Dalton can keep feeding him. And we talked about Malik Neighbors with the injury and concussion. We'll monitor that. I'll let you guys know. Turn on the bell, and I'll keep you up to date on that. But Malik Neighbors, 8th hardest matchup versus position. Jefferson, he's been consistent. 9th hardest matchup versus position versus the Jets. And there you go. You got some visuals here. And CeeDee Lamb, 11th hardest versus position versus Pittsburgh. So those are guys with some tough matches. Starts and sits, make your decision accordingly, but you got to factor in, guys, very, very important, is the actual volume. How much volume are they getting? And then cross-reference that with the actual matchups, which I'm giving you guys right here. You guys make an executive decision, okay? Let's move on to tight end here. I've talked about this a bazillion times. I'm going to say it again. I've got Ferguson in my leagues. I feel warm and fuzzy starting him, but you want to it doesn't really matter with matchups as much here. You want to start the most consistent possible tight end because it's been an absolute crapshoot at this position. But I'm going to give you a visual representation here. I actually like Brenton Strange starting. Again, we talked about Lawrence having a bounce back week. Strange is going to get you 5 to 10 points. And out of a tight end these days, you might as well take it, okay? Foster Monroe, good matchup. Brenton Strange. Tucker Kraft coming off a big 18-point week last week. Good matchup versus Rams. Luke Musgrave, good matchup, Green Bay versus the Rams. Conklin, good matchup versus Minnesota. Colby Parkinson, who's, prime for volume, but 7 points last week, not the greatest. And he's coming off a 7-point week last week. Rams versus Green Bay, easy matchup versus position. Cole Kmet had a good week 2 weeks ago, did nothing last week. Easy matchup versus position. Other guys here, let's take a look. Theo Johnson, Bellinger, not the most exciting options. Travis Kelce, all good matchups, and Ferguson having the 12th easiest matchup versus position versus Pittsburgh. Just be aware. Now, Taysom Hill had himself a good matchup. It looks like in some leagues you can start him as a tight end. He just had the 2 rushing touchdowns. I used him as a running back last week. I saw that. It was ridiculous, and it is what it is, okay? Guys with tougher matchup, Njoku, he's been banged up. Watch that situation, though. Kincaid, tougher matchup versus Houston, 4th hardest versus position. Pat Frymuth coming off a good week. 5th hardest matchup versus position. Likely and Mark Andrews been absolutely a disaster here. Remember, Likely had that one good week. Everyone picked him off waiver wire, thought he'd be a savior, and has done pretty much nothing after that. And Mark Andrews kind of on his fall off the cliff year. It is what it is. But Mark Andrews, I would wait for a decent week or a touchdown and trade high on him. Who else we got here? Hunter Henry, tough matchup. Kyle Pitts, absolute garbage. 0 points last week. Garbage. 10th hardest matchup versus position. I don't know what else to say. Just not a good player. Cade Auden, 11 points past week. He's been pretty safe. If you got Cade Auden off the waiver, if you want to start him, if you don't have a better option, could be a viable start, but it is the 11th hardest matchup versus position, but relatively consistent. If I can get 12 points out of my tight end, not bad. And Kittle as well. Check injury designation, should be good, but 15 points last week. And definitely worth a consideration, okay? But again, tougher matchup versus position. Let's rip through the defenses here. Again, we talked about it. Patriots versus Miami. Miami versus Patriots, good matchups. Commanders versus Cleveland could be a good defense to stream. Broncos versus Vegas. Seattle versus the Giants. Panthers versus Chicago. Colts versus Jacksonville. Not a bad start. But again, we talked about Jacksonville possibly bouncing back. Should be something interesting to see. I'd almost prefer having Jacksonville at Indy, right, to see how they do. But on paper, I don't even know where Jacksonville's not showing up here. Some sort of algorithm glitch or something. Where's Jacksonville? 11th hardest versus position. I don't know. I would think that Jacksonville based on the way Indy's been playing with the interceptions, could be a good defense to start. But as you can see here, better options here. So Raiders versus Denver, Giants versus Seattle, Packers versus Rams. They don't have any wide receivers. So all good options. Seattle versus the Giants. So this, again, you could take a look at this, take a look at some options here. But I do like the Commanders versus Cleveland. I do like, Patriots versus Miami and Miami versus Patriots. It's probably going to be a low-scoring game, all right? So that pretty much wraps it up. If you have any questions, guys, drop them below. I'll try to get to as many as I possibly can, but I just want to make sure you guys, you start your starters for the most part. But if your starters are looking like Tyreek Hill, and he's had 3 games under 9 points, that's where you don't want to start your starters. You want to see who's being consistent. Maybe grab Brian Thomas Jr., who's just getting more volume, more targets, and his back is against the wall. Now, that being said, Tyreek could take off and have 2 touchdowns next week, and Brian Thomas Jr. has 0 points. But based on the momentum of this week, back against the wall, favorable matchup, a quarterback that he trusts, I'm using this as just a point of reference, a Brian Thomas would be a safer start than a Tyreek Hill, and Brian Thomas was like a 10th round pick or whatever he was in drafts. So you got to assess it and say, hey man, I know my team, we're in week 5, we got to win. I'm going to put in people that are performing or people that are in a situation to perform and are getting the volume to perform. Guys, starts and sits week 5, you got to get it right at this point, all right? There's no more, dicking around. You got to get this done, all right? So if you're new to the channel, guys, smash it, tap it, slap it, hit the thumbs up, join the Counselor's Edge right now. And of course, mybookie.ag, code FFC. Go put down your first deposit and get in on the action, okay? And you get my picks at the Counselor's Edge. Let's win together, all right? I appreciate you guys. NFL Fantasy Football Week 5 is here. Here are your must starts. Go out there and dominate the week, guys. You've got all the information in front of you. Go out there and win. We'll talk soon, guys. Have yourself a great day.